Welcome to IVF This, episode 188, IVF and Lucky Girl Syndrome.
Welcome to IVF This. I'm your host, Emily Ginn. After 10 years of primary and secondary infertility due to both male and female factor infertility, I am now the mother to 3 beautiful miracles. I am married to my favorite person in the world. I'm a social worker, a life coach, and an IVF warrior. I'm here to teach you how to manage your mind and emotions during your IVF journey, to break free from anxiety and regain control of your life, even in the midst of infertility. I'm going to teach you how to say IVF this to how we think about, talk about, and experience infertility. Let's go.
Hello, 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 my beautiful friends. I hope you're all doing so well. It is officially fall. It's now October. Love it. It's my favorite month of the year. But I hope wherever you're living, which is not in Central Texas, you're actually getting to enjoy the fall weather. So I hope that for you, and I pray that at some point we will get a reprieve from the heat here in Austin. But I have lived here long enough to know that that's not possible. So I will live vicariously through all of my friends who listen to this podcast and are watching the season change like it's supposed to. I know. I bitch about the weather all the time. This is just my service to you is this podcast. Your service to me is listening to me bitch about the weather. It's a symbiotic relationship, and I love it. But we're going to talk about something today we've kind of touched on in the past, and I just kind of wanted to put a little bit of a different spin on it. It's been a couple of years since I've talked about the reticular activation system. But what we're going to talk about is the idea or concept that came to us, which is lucky girl syndrome. Right? It's this phrase that's been kind of, you probably heard it floating around like TikTok, social media. This is really fascinating to me, how we've kind of renamed all of these things. But it ties into a concept that we've talked about a couple of years ago on the podcast called the reticular activation system, the RAS. And it connects with another idea that has been around for centuries, which is manifestation. So today we're going to break down where lucky girl syndrome comes from, what the reticular activation system is from like a neuroscience perspective, how manifestation fits into all of this, and finally, how can we use these tools in a grounded way during infertility and IVF without bypassing any of the real pain. Okay? Started from the beginning. Lucky girl syndrome first blew up on TikTok in like late 2022, early 2023, which is essentially this belief that if you repeat phrases like everything always works out for me, or I'm the luckiest girl in the world, then your life will kind of rearrange itself to prove you right. People started posting story after story of things, quote unquote, miraculously working out once they adopted this mindset, getting jobs, finding apartments, meeting partners, financial gains, things like that. Now, on the surface, it's essentially just manifestation with a Gen Z rebranding. Manifestation is the idea that by focusing your thoughts, energy, and attention in a certain direction, you'll call all of those things into your life. You'll welcome them into your life. And lucky girl syndrome is like manifestation, but manifestation light, right? It's catchy, it's viral, and it speaks to the same human longing that maybe, just maybe, we have more control over outcomes than it feels like. But here's where the cool part comes in. While a lot of people dismiss it as like woo-woo, and for a time there was, I as well, like I'm just as guilty of classifying things like that as woo-woo, but there is actually a lot of neuroscience that explains why it works. And that's where the reticular activation system comes in. The reticular activation system, or the RAS, is a network of neurons located in the brainstem. Think of it as like your filter between your subconscious mind and your conscious awareness. At any given moment, your brain is bombarded with millions of pieces of like sensory information. What you're wearing, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, the pressure of your body on a chair, the temperature of the air, background noises. So if you had to process these things all consciously, you would be completely overwhelmed. Like your brain would not be able to function. It would just shut down. So the RAS, the reticular activation system, is like a gatekeeper. Its job is to decide what information makes it into your conscious mind and what gets filtered out. It's heavily involved in attention, arousal, and motivation. It's why you can tune out the hum of the refrigerator, but immediately perk up when you hear your name across a crowded room. It's also why you start thinking about buying a red car and suddenly you see red cars everywhere. Here's the kicker. The reticular activation doesn't just filter randomly. It filters based on what you already believe, value, and or focus on. If you believe everyone around me is getting pregnant except for me, your reticular activation system will prioritize showing you pregnant people everywhere. If you believe I am the unluckiest person in the world, your reticular activation system will serve up evidence that reinforces that belief. But if you tell your brain, good things happen for me, your reticular activation system will shift to look for proof of that being true as well. This is why lucky girl syndrome and manifestation feel like magic to some people, but in reality, it's totally based in neuroscience. Now, manifestation gets kind of a bad rap sometimes because it can sound like magical thinking. Like if you just made a vision board, the universe will drop a baby into your doorstep. And of course, that's not how it works. But if you strip away the fluff, manifestation is really about training your attention. You decide what you want, you visualize it, and you keep it at the forefront of your mind. The reticular activation system goes to work filtering your world through that lens, through whichever lens that you are giving your attention to. You notice opportunities you might have ignored before. You feel more motivated to act. You experience your environment very differently because your brain is scanning for alignment with your belief. So when TikTok influencers say everything always works out for me, what they're really doing is giving their reticular activation system a command: filter for evidence that life is unfolding in my favor. That doesn't mean that hard things will stop happening. It means your brain is more likely to catch the moments of alignment, the little wins, the signs of hope, rather than catching on all of the losses. Now, let's be real for a second. If you've been through failed cycles, miscarriages, and years of trying to conceive, being told, quote unquote, just manifest it can feel incredibly invalidating and maybe even cruel. And I want to name that. I think that that's important to point out. You cannot mantra or manifest your way out of infertility. And lucky girl syndrome is not a replacement for medical treatment or for honoring your grief. But where it can help, we can use the principles behind it, the reticular activation system, the power of focused attention to make this experience a little bit more survivable, a little bit more tolerable. We can choose thoughts that are believable, kind, compassionate, rather than ones that maybe reinforce the despair you might feel. Instead of everything always works out for me, which may feel like hollow or false, you could try, I can handle what happens next or what comes next. I am open to small moments of peace. There is possibility I can't yet see. These thoughts still give your reticular activation system instructions, but they don't demand blind positivity. They allow you to hold both your grief and your hope at the same time. So, how can we make this practical? So, the first step is I want you to decide what you want to believe, right? And it can be as ambitious a thought as possible, or it can be a thought maybe more grounded in neutrality. Write down the thought that feels believable. And that's the key phrase. That's the key word I want you to hone in on. Believable and repeatable. Put it on sticky notes, on your lock phone, or even in your medication box, wherever you're going to frequent so that we can reinforce that belief as much as possible. You're going to curate your mental diet. If your TikTok, Facebook, or Instagram leave you feeling like you're spiraling, I want you to notice that. The more you consume fear and comparison, the more your reticular activation system will highlight it. Curate your feeds and your conversations to align with the feelings that you want to cultivate. daily gratitude practice. This can be challenging for some of us. It's taken me a very long time to get into a regular practice of gratitude. But gratitude is basically manifestation's grounded cousin. I think is probably the best way to describe it. I know it sounds strange, but they are very much linked. It tells your reticular activation system, look for what's working, look for what's safe, look for what is beautiful or positive. Even if it's small, your cup of coffee, a moment of laughter, a good song on the radio, those can all be classified as small wins, tiny little joys that you can hold on to. And for the last step, it's visualization with compassion. Visualization is one of the most classic manifestation tools that we talk about, but here's how we make it IVF friendly. Instead of only picturing a positive pregnancy test, picture yourself being calm before an appointment. Picture yourself handling the injections with steadiness. Picture yourself allowing your emotions without any judgment. This way, this grounded visualization, this visualization with compassion, this way it helps you to understand that no matter the outcome, your visualizations are going to support you. So, my beautiful friends, lucky girl syndrome may be trending on TikTok. Maybe you've heard buzz of it on Instagram or whatever. But the truth is, it's just a fun new name for something that humans have always done, giving our brain instructions on where to look. Whether you call it manifestation, mindset, reticular activation system programming, the principle is the same. What you focus on expands. You don't have to believe that everything will always work out for you in order to use this or to utilize it. You don't have to bypass your grief or shame yourself for struggling. You simply get to decide, what do I want my brain to highlight to me today? And maybe that's courage, right? Maybe it's compassion. Maybe it's the possibility of still being surprised by life. And it doesn't have to happen all the time. Nobody bats 1,000 with this. But I want you to imagine a world in which you could do this 25% of the time. An hour out of your day where you can sit and allow possibility to sit with you and visualize yourself feeling grounded and secure, no matter what phone call comes in from your clinic, no matter what the test results bring, no matter what uncertainty you face. And that, to me, is the most grounded, IVF-friendly version of the lucky girl syndrome. And I think it's worth practicing, right? If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. What have you lost out on? Nothing, right? You can get back to your old programming. I guarantee you it's going to be there playing in the background no matter what. But for just a moment, for a fleeting, brief moment, allow yourself possibility. Okay, that is what I have for you today. Thank you for spending time with me. I see you, I hear you, and I'm here for you. And I hope you have a wonderful week. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of IVF This. If you like what you've heard, click subscribe and follow to make sure you don't miss an episode. And if you want to learn more, head over to www.ivfthiscoaching.com to learn how to work together.